up on there in a couple of seconds. But either way, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Patreon.com/Al Sparks. Great way to support the show. And super chats and whatever else is a great way to help out. Now, Candy watches horizontally because she's not a psychopath. That's her. Although I'll take offense at that in that my mom is a screenager. She's one of these. She watches vertical stuff all the time on her when she's watching Facebook stuff. She's like, it's like she's 14. It's amazing. Now, it's hard to decide where to start. My mind immediately and all this stuff obviously goes to the fact that apparently we're about to start. The president is considering, while the Iranians are desperate to talk to us, if you talk to anybody except the Iranians, that he is I guess going to do 2 weeks of strikes. That's on the table right now. 2 weeks of strikes are on the table. Now, if you've ever listened to Trump talk about war and all that stuff before, everything's always on the table, including nukes. And that was the part that was scary in his first term. And there's no reason to believe they wouldn't be now. So there's a mix of just like being terrified of the idiocy. But the idea that there are strikes that are on the table might be just a way to manipulate the markets after Friday night, going into the markets, knowing which way they're going to go Sunday night when they turn on the futures markets. So it's just more market manipulation from the Trump crowd in that regard. However, he said this stuff from Camp David. Now, he's at Camp David for an indeterminate amount of time. I don't know if he's there for the weekend or for these 2 weeks of strikes or what have you. I don't know if the construction on the ballroom basement, it's the ballroom basement, is keeping him awake. We don't know. But tell me what you know about Camp David, Johnny Million, just in general. Do you know much about it? I mean, it's kind of opaque anyways.
Is Camp David where former President W would go and clear brush?
No, that was his ranch in Midland, Texas, where he would play cowboy. Even though he was apparently afraid of cows, he would still wear the hat, which means it's not a cowboy hat anymore. It suddenly legally cannot be described as a cowboy hat. I called it an a-hole hat because if you don't have any cows. Oh, yeah. What else? Tell me something else about Camp David that you've heard before.
It's where the president runs off to not talk to people.
You've really hit on something. Now, why would the president not talk to people? Let's say, besides the average bad press is getting to him, he needs some time away, standard vacation stuff. Because obviously Trump has private golf courses he can go to for that, right? What else does Camp David?
Got nothing good to say.
Besides the fact that Camp David is the site of the Martin Sheen scene in Dead Zone, where he's telling the guy to put his hand on the nuclear launch thing or he'll cut it off and put it on himself, and then he walks out and goes, the missiles are away, hallelujah. Yeah, that's supposed to take place at Camp David. That's when Martin Sheen becomes president and starts. Yeah. The other thing that they have there, much like the NORAD site where you could live below ground for 100 years, like in Dr. Strangelove. The other thing Camp David has, and this goes back to, I imagine it was built up more and more during the Cold War, but certainly during Roosevelt, it has its own medical facility, of course.
I was going to say something about the doctors.
The 22 doctors.
Would he get his ridiculously positive examination results from there?
No, he would get those at Walter Reed, but he goes over there and he does it at the White House, because there are three basic places where the president goes to get medical care.
I'm just going to keep guessing random stuff.
That's fine. It's totally good. Yeah. The primary one, of course, being Walter Reed. That's the one. That's where he went when he had COVID, and he came back all a huffing and a puffing, and his staff talked him into walking the flight of stairs just to prove he was still alive. And by the time he got up there, he couldn't. Now he can't walk stairs like that normally, so much less right after he had COVID. It's pretty bad. So Walter Reed, though, is the primary place where the president and senators and people, like high-level military officials and folks like that get their care, and it's a secure place, but it is very open. If the president is driving to Walter Reed, that's news. Now, the White House has a similar medical facility, and it is, it's in case of emergencies. In case I forget, one of our presidents had a stroke, and that was treated there, a long time ago. And when it happened, they were like, we kind of need a facility here. So they built this kind of like Cold War level bunker-esque, military or medical facility, but it's on a lower res than certainly Walter Reed, and it's out in the open. Everybody knows if you're walking down that hallway, that's where you're going. Now, that brings us to, why is Donald Trump, for the first time ever, suddenly interested in going to Walter Reed, and he's been there twice this year in the last few months, along with his 4 cognitive exams since he took office. And
is he extra super sick?
Well, that's the question. The question is not, I guess, that this might be a regular part of the deterioration. Again, I'm speculating on a hypotenuse, as a friend of mine once said, because there's no way of knowing, and that's the point. Yeah. So Camp David is the reason, like why he would go there and bring the cabinet and have one of these big open cabinet meetings where he's already sitting and they bring the staff in and they do this thing and then they take the staff out, and then everybody in the MAGA sphere, in the MAGA sphere in the news was doing this big thing about transparency. Oh my God, it's so great that we get to see these cabinet meetings. The transparency of this, almost like they had been directed by the White House to mention how transparent we are. We're having these cabinet meetings out in the open. Now, obviously, these people, just fluffing him and giving these weird little speeches about what a great leader he is, and him making basically a written statement and then rambling on about whatever his little weave is not a cabinet meeting. It's not. You don't powwow your cabinet to talk about hey guys, what's awesome this week that I'm doing? That's not what meetings are for. It's for genuine back and forth between your cabinet secretaries and the people, so you can check in on progress. You want to know the positive and the negative, in theory anyways, right? But we never hear the negative. It's always just a glaze fest, right? So, yeah, right. So the purpose of this whole thing, just looks like a front. It looks like a Potemkin village. It reeks of it. And Trump's kind of heavily made up hands, and is keeping his one hand under the table the entire time. Him being, under the table, sitting at the table, jammed up against it, like he's got a catheter in and an IV up his leg. The other leg, I suppose. I hope. I hope they didn't just loop the. He needs fluids. Sorry, I got you. I got an idea. Does that not sound like a Sean Duffy plan? I mean, come on. Yeah,
we'll just loop this back in there.
Right, yeah, right. He won't notice. It's probably the healthiest beverage he's had in ages. But yeah, so I am of the impression that these visits to Walter Reed around the whole, and we'll talk about how he acted there and his obvious paraphasia and his rambly nonsense that everybody at the table seems to either be passively or actively ignoring. There's 2 versions of it. There's the overwhelming flattery. You're doing great, Dad. That kind of thing when somebody's dealing with a parent that's obviously on a hard fade. or the what's going on with my fingernails right here, which is what Marco Rubio was doing the entire time. He was doing this the whole time. He was checking his
no eye
fingernails.
contact.
None, and no reference to what he's saying or doing. So I gotta say, it looked like a visit to the hospital, and considering. This isn't even Trump's own thing. We got to take a break, but this isn't even considering what we obviously know about him as a human being, never exercising, believing that he's got a limited number of heartbeats, and if you exercise, that brings your death sooner, and ridiculous stuff like that. Which, by the way, do you know most mammals have exactly the same number of heartbeats, except for one? One animal doesn't have, average out about 1 billion heartbeats. That's it. Life from a little mole rat to an elephant, all through like all mammals on the planet, all the primates and stuff like that. They all average out about 1 billion heartbeats, and then that's the end. Except for one. There's one animal that doesn't. One mammal that doesn't. I'll tell you after the break. Watch it. I'll tell you after the break. We'll be back right after this.
I'm Gen X. That's my knee jerk. I have to
That's right. That is right. Absolutely. Emphasis on the jerk. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. There we go. So there we go. You buy the jerk. So yeah. There's one animal. Not a whale. It's a good guess though. Not a whale, not a dolphin. That's not a mammal though. Again, these are mammals. They have to be mammals.
Dolphin's a mammal.
Right? But it's not a dolphin or a whale. It's not in that category.
But it is a mammal?
It is a mammal. Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah. Somebody already knows. It's already come up in chat. It's like they already won.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right.
See if you get it when we come back, Johnny Million, without peeking.
No.
Yeah.
No, let's not see if Johnny gets it.
Let's see if Johnny gets it. After this one animal of all of them.
Guesses are taken and they're wrong.
Manatee. Nope. It's not a manatee. Nope. A bear. I understand where you got that one. I understand where they went with bear because they hibernate. So maybe they fluctuate, right? But nope. Not that. That's not it. People are starting to get it, I think.
Well, I'm not going to look, but I'm
Don't cheat.
I'm out of a zebra.
Mammals? Wouldn't that pertain to all horses? Why would that be? Why would they be different?
Zebras are horses.
Wow. Oh man. Feel free to add him. I never even saw this asshole before. Zebras aren't horses? How dare you?
No. No, they're related, but it's not.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's progressive talk, WCPT.
So Johnny Million, one last guess, brother. One last guess. What
capybara.
mammal? Capybara. That I like it. No. Ironically enough, considering Trump's idiotic belief about exercise, it's people. Human beings are the only mammal that doesn't average at 1 billion heartbeats. We have, and as a matter of fact, over the last a couple of centuries, like the last maybe 600 years, our count of heartbeats has tripled. It was around that for a very long time because of how we died and how life, went after us and the diseases that we dealt with and food and scarcity and all that stuff. But now humans average about 3 billion. We have tripled our heartbeats and our longevity because we've We've managed it. Now, in some cases, if you look, there's a way of testing this, which is, of course, animals in zoos, will often be on the high end, not much higher, but they definitely get about 8 to 10 years more.
They outlive what they would have done in the wild.
Yeah, because of the average also being the number of heartbeats you have in your life is not just cradle to grave dying of natural causes. It's your heart rate over how long you normally live. They break it down over time. Obviously, there are fluctuations, but yeah. So, like human beings, and one of the reasons why we get more heartbeats than other animals, exercise and diet management and all the things Trump doesn't believe in because he thinks you've only got a certain number of heartbeats. Didn't stop him from blazing rails of Adderall and stuff like that, which is a stimulant, and the Sudafed that basically has meth in it, allegedly, according to people who worked on The Apprentice, which in theory would raise your heartbeat. I think Diet Coke more than likely raises the old kicks the ticker up a bit. Yeah. So, needless to say, it is my belief, feel free to at me, that Donald Trump they're increasingly trying more elaborate ways of hiding his health and mental decline. And Camp David is their new go-to. And you should expect him to spend an increasing amount of time at a number of days, vacations, those kind of things there. As he is, if you'll notice, with his cankles and all that kind of stuff, and his gait problems and all that he has with his walking and his weird arm drag and his fear of steps, the golf has kind of dropped off. I mean,
I was really surprised that he golfed at all, that he came back to golf at all after his disappearance.
Well,
that time. But he comes back and golfs like crap in front of everybody.
Well, but that's one of the things that they really they push him to do. Kind of, he's just doing a lot less of it. And how many? Again, there's 18 holes on a golf course. Maybe he's playing 9. Maybe. What proof do we have that he's not just going out there, walking around near one of the holes, having a meeting like, hey, boss, you got to go back to work. But we can do one, you can go out and do a single drive and we'll film it and share it with everybody. But the idea that he's playing a whole game of golf is absurd. He's definitely not playing 18 holes. So that he's doing even 9 is, prove it. The last thing I saw
when I was a young man and I enjoyed golfing and drinking, 18 holes is a big ask.
Yeah, it is. It is for anybody, especially if you walk. Now, obviously, he caravans around in golf carts and everybody's carrying his bag. He's got his own, he doesn't he has caddies and all these guys. They're pulling the club out of the bag and handing it to him. So the amount of exercise has been hyper minimalized. The dude drives up on the green, right?
Yeah,
he's not even doing the little hill walk that you have to do to get to the tee.
To take the carts up on the green,
right?
It's well away from that stuff.
It seems par for the course. So
I see what you did there.
So and also he, the one time that he has golfed recently was the day we found out we lost more soldiers. I believe it was the day of the Jordan attack. He was golfing, and it was like the first time they'd really shown him golfing in a couple of weeks, and then he hasn't since. So, I gotta say, all signs point to the hard fade is happening, and the staff is having a much more difficult time, covering it up. He did this American Haulers thing. I covered it on my show. I don't know if you saw this, where they're gonna offer a commercial driver's license, short program for anybody who drove a big truck in the military can get their commercial driver's license for Mack trucks and that kind of stuff without having to go through redundant training. Well, guess what? Part of that already exists in a bunch of states anyways. He just made it this federalized thing, and he has no... The state can't enforce... the federal government can't enforce states' licensing rights for vehicles, especially commercial vehicles within the state. That's part of the federalist system that we have. That's why you have a driver's license from your state, not a federal driver's license. So it's performative nonsense to begin. And vocational programs for vets to transition them from working in the military into civilian jobs that are similar, have been there for a long time, especially when it comes to high tech jobs and jobs that involve heavy machinery. That's part of the sales pitch when you join. So a lot of it's just, again, a dog and pony show, and calling it American haulers and just giving Fox News something to wave a flag about. But the weirdest part is he comes out, does this with one of the companies that's going to hire these guys if and when they ever decide to wanna. And then, a couple of drivers who were vets who do it now already, clearly showing that there's a pathway that exists and has for a long time. And Trump, at the end of it, he goes, I'm going to come up and I'm going to say, he says his few words, he goes, and then our Secretary of Transportation is going to say something, and then this guy's going to say something, and then I'm just going to stand over here and watch. And so he stands over there, he says it, and because it just tells him to stand by on the notes, I guess. And then he comes up and he goes, so our American hauler is going to be a great thing. Bye. And he just says bye and walks into the building.
He said the word bye.
He said bye. He just left. He said bye, bye, and it was so peculiar. Yeah. And Andrea made a really good point about Camp David as well, that it's a smaller space, that the places between them and the buildings themselves, he doesn't have to walk as far from the bedroom to the operating office to the, so his travel distance, like from the president's quarters to the Oval Office, it's a little hoof. It's not a big deal, but there's an elevator, but you can, the stairs they're right there every day. Look, they're staring at you. See what I did there? I'm sorry. I made Johnny Million shake his head.
I love a pun.
I know.
I love a pun.
And in this case, I think it applied almost better than any time in history.
Probably the best pun, and maybe it was too good a pun.
I think that's what it was. It bordered on literature. If I get too Oscar Wilde, Johnny has me dial it back. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this because I want to talk about the Iranian hack on the Minnesota water system and Donald Trump's reaction to it, which was to blame Minnesota. Did you see that, Johnny Million, by any chance? Trump blaming Minnesota for the Iranian hack?
No, I honestly, the most current thing I'm aware of are the relitigation of the pandemic and the reflecting pool liner being not slashed by an Olympic swimmer.
Oh yeah, well we'll talk about that because that's how I want to end this hour. Is they dropped the charges in the most obvious last night. They filed a motion to dismiss, basically under cover of night, and it was and their reasoning for requesting the dismissal is that they were not provided evidence. Well, I'll save it for the air because this is
okay.
Just what a moron. Again, this is the disinhibiting crap where he's just
where facts matter. debunking the lies your uncle saw on Facebook. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I don't know where that bass line came from, but I got all Les Claypool when I heard it.
Yeah.
Right. So the news came out that the water system in Minnesota was attacked by a cyber attack, and the type of cyber attack you could do on a system like this, besides just monitoring it for a future attack. Let's say you wanted to shut it down. One of the cyber attacks you do is you get in the system and you root around and you get passwords and you create a backdoor for yourself so you can get in and later or right, and it's I think that was called Operation. I think it was Operation Moon River. Was that what it was called? But yeah. So the Minnesota, it was. There are several terrible things you can do. One is you can remove the chemicals. You could stop the flow of the chemicals that clean the water for the filtration, so that the water that passes through has pathogens and bacteria and stuff that can harm people, and their water becomes unsafe to drink, but they don't know it. Or you can overdo the chemicals, making it toxic, because the balance is kind of important. There's all kinds of ways that you can upset that delicate balance, and why it's important to protect your infrastructure around these things, one would think. So the FBI, CISA, which Trump obviously is defunding as much as possible, because one of the things they do is monitor foreign interference in elections, and people trying, Americans or foreigners inside the country working with foreign governments to undermine, our American industry, American infrastructure, our election systems, all this stuff. And you can't have them peeking in on that when the president's buddies are all participating in that. You say when you got 7 Republican senators coordinating their magic trip to Russia, and they're all going to go over there for the 4th of July because they're being threatened if they don't come over and show face to Vladimir Putin by coming on the 4th of July, that they're going to get in trouble. So you got to be able to hide all those things. You got to be able to call Vladimir Putin from private lines and associated hacker groups or arms traders, gun runners, and whatever, without anybody peeking at you. Because even if there's a wiretap on those folks, they shouldn't be allowed to look at you unless they specifically can unmask you, which is why the freak out happened. So if you'll recall, when Trump says Obama spied on my campaign, where that comes from, let's be abundantly clear, is the U.S. government, for the safety of and security of the American people, maintains surveillance on bad actors in the world, including members of the KGB, members of the Russian oligarchy, the Chinese intelligence, Israeli, Israeli intelligence, Saudi intelligence. There's this back and forth, because there's enemies and frenemies that you always have to keep an eye on. And the way the FISA warrant stuff, which they freaked out about, worked was, they're really concerned that if they're tapping Vladimir Putin's, private blackmail phone, and you need to get a specific warrant to unmask who the other number, the American number calling him, is. You have to have a warrant specifically to go, hey, this person is called half a dozen times, and they're calling with increasing frequency. That worries us, so we want to get a warrant to check out who this is. And that's how members of the Trump campaign were unmasked during that process, and why they freaked out about it, and why they keep wanting to get rid of the rules around that, and why they, talk about, FISA warrants being issued illegally and all that kind of stuff, is because they want to be able to call these folks and hide behind the law. Even though they're, if you call a drug dealer over and over and over and over again, and you could be his neighbor going, dude, can you move your car? We have to put our garbage cans out, and you keep parking in front of it. You call them every week at the same time. This sounds a little close to home, but you call, them and you go like, dude, it's Friday night. We have to put our garbage cans out. Could you move your car just tonight? You keep park across the street like we asked. That could be the reason you call this guy every week. And you could have no idea that he's a cartel-connected drug dealer that's been running this thing, right? That's a strong possibility. And you as an American citizen would have the right to privacy and not have your phones tapped or your information or them to look you up and run you down at the FBI just because you're calling weekly based on that. But after a year of doing that and the FBI staking out the property, as they probably have, and they're like, oh, this guy calls because the guy goes out after he calls, and the guy goes out and moves his car, and then the other guy brings his garbage cans out, and we've taken the guy's garbage a couple times. There's no drugs or money or anything in it, so it's obviously not an exchange. This is just neighbor to neighbor annoyance conversation. Done. We don't even need to know anything about the other guy, whatever. That they have a myriad of ways of checking those kind of things. But if you started calling and then you started calling every, in the middle of the week, and then every 2 days, and then the garbage cans started you start rolling your garbage cans out in the middle of the night, and then you start rolling them back into the house on Tuesdays. You roll it out there, and then the other guy's suddenly putting his garbage in your garbage can, and they're neatly bundled something in his garbage bags, and you can see them that may be bricks of something. We can't quite tell. And he puts them in your garbage can, and you roll them in the house, and then you drive to, the airport, on a private airfield and visit your family in Panama. Then it starts to stack, right? Then the FBI might go to might go to the judge and go, hey, we need to tap this guy's phone too, right? That's how these things happen. And the Trump organization knows that the reason they freaked out is because of this. So there's this weird thing about Trump defending Russia specifically, where he would go, I don't think Russia did it. And I talked to Putin, like when the intelligence services were saying they were messing with our elections. Remember this? And Trump had this, that really humiliating meeting with Putin where he came out and said, he told me very strongly, and it looked like he'd had a proctological exam. So that obviously the strength of this had a lot to do with whether or not Putin took his watch off during how he told him it was very strongly that he didn't do it. But it's become, Trump has this weird thing as his brain turns to tapioca, where that's now his knee jerk with anybody that he is either negotiating with or is the leader of another country that he somehow sees as an equal, no matter what that country is, whether it's Kim Jong-un or in this case, the Ayatollahs, the second tier Ayatollah or the IRGC, whoever the heck we're talking to, we don't know, in Iran. So here's Trump's response when they asked him about whether the Iranians hacked the Minnesota water system. Hold on. Do you hear the audio on that? Did it not come through? Hold on one second.
No, I don't hear
that
it.
was okay. 1 second. That's on my end, and I will fix that as you do. Oh yeah, because the mic was turned on. That's what happens. Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
It's always something. But Trump effectively is, and this is from when he's at Camp David, and he's taking questions from reporters. So it should come through now, in theory. Oh, that was terrible. That's not good audio. A little. Okay. That's something I will have to remedy during that time. That's odd. But he says, I'll quote it. I feel like Nicole Wallace when they don't have the clip. But he says, the question was, can you rule out that Iran is behind that cyber attack? And Trump's response was, no, I think Minnesota is behind it. I don't think there was an Iranian cyber attack. So Minnesota hacked their own water system is the theory.
Yeah, man.
Okay, yeah. So I'll restart that and figure out what the audio situation is there, or play it off my phone or something. But this, I gotta say, as ridiculous as it was and absurd as people know it is, and embarrassing, where he attacks Tim Walz and just Minnesota because it's full of Somalis or something nonsensical like that.
Right.
Everybody else is clearly calling out this. Excuse me, the information that they were getting from like reporters and industry insiders around like water purification. There's an entire industry. These guys have conventions. They work with state governments and everything to like giant apartment buildings or whatever. Like the Sears Tower has its own water filtration system secondary to what the city has and that kind of stuff. You're like, this is a big industry alongside just the necessity of having as part of infrastructure. So everybody knows how this stuff works. And when they start talking about what failed, they kind of know right away. I mean, just think about the water system in New York and the fact that they have to divert, seawater out of the subway all the time with a bunch of pumps while maintaining a water system inside the city that's below ground by and large, right? So it's not like they don't know when an issue pops up. So this is we're getting bits of and pieces of information from the state of Minnesota and the FBI. He said in an interview on Friday afternoon, they're pretty sure it's Iranian actors, but are reluctant to say so publicly. A memo sent by an industry group that shares cyber threat information among water utilities that was obtained by Wired magazine said the attacks aligned with hacking activity being conducted by Iran-affiliated actors. Mr. George, a Republican who's running for state auditor, said he had heard the president's remark casting doubt on Iranian culpability. He said that the president was, quote, entitled to his opinion, but that it is incumbent on state officials to help cities harden their defense against cyber attacks. Minnesota was not the only state to suffer intrusions, and that's the key here. Michigan also got hit. It's been less reported. In a public advisory published late Thursday, after the Times report, the FBI and the Environmental Protection Agency said that since Monday, at least 7 states have reported incidents to the FBI, and some of that activity degraded water operations. Officials have declined to say which states have been affected, but a spokesman for the Michigan state government confirmed that his state system was attacked. We received a small number of reports from Michigan communities indicating activity consistent with what federal agencies described. Dale George, the spokesman, said in an email. Mr. George added that all systems affected continue to operate safely and there were no known impacts that posed a public health concern. So they were trying to get into the systems and these were breaches, but they didn't actually materially change anything. That does not mean they could not in the future. One of the things we know about Iranian hackers is that they are often aligned with Russian hackers and parallel attacks that Russian hackers have made in the past, and that they work in tandem a lot of times. And what was one of the hidden stories that from the Hunter Biden laptop farce was the fact that Russians don't just break in. The Chinese, by and large, have been known in the past to break in and either observe or take things. That's their primary methodology. The Russians observe and take things, but they also insert things. They are one of their strategies is to, as chaos agents in it, is to manipulate internal email threads and that kind of stuff to have information that was not previously there, or change records with new and different and wrong information, which would affect, the downstream effects of, some infrastructure planning stage or something like that. You imagine if you just changed the requisition orders, you added a requisition order for the bolts on a bridge build, and you changed the diameter of the bolt that they were ordering, and then you over-ordered them again to slow down the response to building the bridge. And nobody's going to admit that they did it, so they're just going to send it back, eat the money, the taxpayer eats that cost, they'll dispose of them or what have you. This is just an example, but you could do that stuff fairly easily. And the Russians this is one of their big things. And they also tend to throw in hash so that, like, Republicans will say that there's fraud or that something's fake or whatever. They'll intentionally insert fake stuff so they can reference it. And that goes to, I have an entire list of breaches that have been done by Iran before. And a couple of them really stand out. One of them that ties very directly into the circumstance we find ourselves in and the financial support behind the current president that goes well beyond the Netanyahu is the Trump whisperer and hypnotized him into attacking Iran. that's much more closer. It's much closer to the base motivation of Trump and his entire family, which of course is always self-enrichment and power. I'll talk about that on the other. Always. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. This is, here it is.
All right, quick piddle. Before Phil gets here, I don't want him to hear any of this.
Oh, God. Oh, dear. Here we go. And it has to, at least, did he take his mic off? Did he? Oh, he's enjoying himself. Oh, no. Johnny, could you just finish it? Could you please just, oh no. Why do you have to, we've got a whole break. This is so, why?
The support sounds explosive.
It's terrible. Yes, it's terrible. Oh, come on. John, is anything actually happening? Johnny, are you okay? Why is he? Now he's just being rude at this point. I don't know why. Oh.
I didn't hear any of the first part.
You didn't? Oh, no. Oh, sorry. It wasn't playing in there? It's being a jerk again. My audio. That's so sad. The thing is, like, there's some sort of, I know what I have to do. I know what it is. Hold on.
Okay.
I got to build. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it today. I'm not going to do it. It's just too much.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So there's I have a little comprehensive list because I do my homework on the number of Iranian cyber attacks. This isn't even, don't get me started on the Russian, the Chinese stuff that's happened. All while Donald Trump is saying how Xi Jinping has a great relationship with him and they're best friends and he respects him and like nobody's ever respected him before and blah, blah, blah. All during, him talking about that, especially in 2020 when he was like, I trust him to handle COVID and all that kind of stuff. They were hacking American hospitals and trying to shut down parts of them, the records keeping systems, the electrical systems, like actively. This is beyond just the soft power allegations about fentanyl dumping and all that kind of stuff. But in, in 2011, Iran attacked a bunch of banks for 2011 to 2013. In 2013, they attacked the New York Dam in Rye, New York. They tried to attack the control system there, which again, they were able to view operational information. The sluice gate, which is used to control water levels, was disconnected at the time for maintenance. So they were not. The timing was interesting in that had it been it could have been controlled virtually or remotely, which it couldn't because it was closed for maintenance. They could have opened it and flooded the entire area or shut it and backed up the water fully. They could have, used the extreme settings on it to cause damage. But literally at the time they did it, we kind of got lucky. But here's the one that stands out to me, the Iranians. Now, if you recall, this ties into our dear friend Philip Bittner, who's going to be joining us in the next hour while he's under attack in Kiev and Russia's, throwing everything against the wall to try and break Ukraine with what's left of Russia's munitions and men. They're supposed to get another 50,000 soldiers from either North Korea and like Uzbekistan and other places where they're scooping up people. They're the foreign people that are working, the immigrants that are working inside Russia are basically being rounded up and fed into the war machine at a higher pace than ever before. It's always been consistent, but they're just literally janitors and housekeepers and people that they have coming in, immigrants to do that kind of work in the Moscow and St. Petersburg region. They're just scooping those folks up too, and putting a cardboard gun in their hand and telling them to, making them drone targets. So this is the one that stood out to me. Do you remember 2014, which was Euromaidan, when Tucker Carlson and some of his idiot buddies talk about that America fomented a coup in Ukraine against the elected leadership, when Yanukovych was driven out of the country because he and his buddy Paul Manafort, who went to work for Trump's campaign, organized snipers in bell towers to shoot at protesters, to with agents provocateurs in the crowd to excuse the killing of the protesters and that kind of stuff. It didn't work. Yanukovych had to sneak out of the country. They put him on a private plane, to a helicopter, to a truck, and he now lives in Russia, or has been pushed out a window. We don't know. He's just living at the Putin retirement facility in Sochi, along with Assad and every other terrible person that's beat feet from in particular leadership of a country lately. That year, there was an Iranian cyber attack on the Las Vegas Sands Casino that was owned by Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson, who's passed away. Miriam Adelson is one of Trump's favorite donors, I think giving something in the order of like $250 million to his campaign. More than Elon Musk, effectively funding the campaign outright, repeatedly. In 2014, the Las Vegas Sands Casino's company's hard drives were wiped. Its corporate network was damaged, and its hotel websites were vandalized with condemnations of CEO Sheldon Adelson's comments about using nuclear weapons on Iran, because he wanted us to nuke Iran for what they had done. The casino company also said the hackers had stolen the personal information of tens of thousands of customers, including their social security and driver's license numbers, which, again, the fact that they have the Sands has the social security and driver's license numbers of their customers. I understand the last four digits; those are floating around on everybody. But the fact that they have them completely of the customers, I'm not talking about the employees. But again, if you look at gambling, isn't the gambler really an employee of the casino? If the house always wins, it's kind of a job. Then Director of National Intelligence James Clapper publicly blamed Iran for the hack. In a congressional hearing on worldwide threats, he said it marked the first time destructive cyber attacks were carried out on U.S. soil by nation-state entities. And since then, by the way, this is the right hates Clapper. The right, thinks that, Obama was friendly with the Iranians and whatever. Meanwhile, we responded really heavily. Not heavily enough for Sheldon Adelson, though, apparently, who thought we should nuke them in response. Now, fast forward to who's been whispering in Trump's ear, and this idea that, again, that Netanyahu is leading him around by the nose, when in fact, the person who's giving him the most money is directing this as much as, his relationship with Netanyahu. Miriam Adelson didn't forget about this attack. More than likely agreed with Sheldon Adelson's, idea that we should nuke them. Still carries that chip, right? And supported the guy who was saying no more foreign wars, no more regime change wars, no more, no more Middle Eastern wars, no more forever wars, and who obviously, to everyone, is now carrying out the plan of every Republican president since Reagan, at least, that and certainly George H.W. Bush, of the PNAC plan for the Middle East, the Project for a New American Century, where the capstone of the countries to knock over was Iran. And we heard about this from a myriad of people over the years, and the idea was that Trump would be different. That he's not going to, he's not your average Republican. Well, guess what? He is precisely that. Because of who his donors are, he has dragged us into another prolonged Middle Eastern conflict with no end in sight. P.S. Is it just Iran? Nope. 3 Russian nationals and 2 companies indicted for international cyber crimes, resulting in more than $62 million in victim losses. This is just from July 14th of this year. The Russian nationals that did this affected. They've all been indicted in absentia, obviously. But one of the things, the victims in this case are not only in Ohio, which is one of the primary places. This is what stood out to me about this one. And did you hear a peep from the Trump organization, the administration, the regime, about any of this? No, because this lawsuit, these charges, were filed. This indictment started under Biden, and the Justice Department just continued down the road of following this case on autopilot. They're just doing their job. So Trump chooses to ignore these. But the victims in this case are not only in Ohio, but also in 20 other states across the country. So they attacked people in 20 states in the United States, 20, touching every aspect of Americans' lives. They included banks, schools, government entities, hospitals, and media companies. U.S. Attorney David Tepfer for the Northern District of Ohio said, "Together with our international partners, we will aggressively combat the efforts of individuals who hide behind computers anywhere in the world, who seek to profit and wreak havoc by targeting the infrastructures that support our communities." And meanwhile, Donald Trump is saying, "I don't think it was the Iranians. I think Minnesota did it to themselves." Does he think Ohio did this to themselves in any of these situations? What about Salt Typhoon? Whoops, hold on. We got to jump over to this one. There was a major cyber incident that the Chinese did this year. The designation suggests that hackers successfully compromised swaths of sensitive data stored directly on FBI systems. The Chinese broke in, and the last time they did, and have you heard Kash Patel come out and go, "Hey, we stopped this"? No. What did the Chinese do when they broke into this? What was the purpose of this breach? It was to monitor the FBI's ability to wiretap digitally with a warrant. So what they did was they hacked the FBI and tracked everybody that the FBI was tapping their phones with a warrant or not. Now, this helps, obviously, Chinese spies to hide if they go, "Hey, they've got our phones tapped and we will know this." But they also know what leverage might be being built or cases might be being built against everyone else, from cartels to government employees to the journalists that Trump is going after. Under Kash Patel, the Chinese now know the targets of all the cyber warrants and the wiretap warrants in the American telecom system.
Okay.
And I think when this all went down, he was drinking with the hockey team in Italy. We'll be back right after this. Our dear friend Philip Bittner will be joining us from Kiev. Yeah, we'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Listen to the Tom Hartman radio program every weekday from 11 to 2 right here on WCPT 820. Where facts matter.
Hold on. I'm going to mute them for the break. Sorry. The Bureau first told Congress on March 4th that it was investigating suspicious activity on an internal agency system that contained law enforcement sensitive information. The FBI did not publicly identify who was behind the activity at the time, but Politico previously reported that China is suspected. But, Trump probably thinks Minnesota did it. The FBI determined the intrusion meets the definition of a major incident under federal data security statute known as FISMA, and said the 3 people. Congress was informed of the decision earlier this week. According to the aide, this person, like others in this report, was granted anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly on the investigation. And where's he stepping out in front of a microphone saying, "We got him, we stopped him"? Because this only happened with him at the head. This wasn't something that previously had occurred. Here's Phil. Hold on one second.
Yay, Phil.
Yeah. Put him in guest 2. And I think I have the morning guest. Can you hear us okay, brother?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I can
great.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Cool.
Hey, Phil.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Some reason, though, I'm hearing you through my speakers and not my...
We sound fine, so if it's not feeding back. So if you're okay with that, we're good if you're good. Who can say?
I guess.
Okay, I don't know why that is. Well, I'm going to grab this and see if it's the other. I'm going to quit Safari and then reopen it, see if that solves any of our issues. It's an odd new part of this whole thing.
All right, there you go. Now I've got you.
Yay.
Okay. Cool.
It was on my end. I just restarted the headphone, headset. So
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, let me see.
when in doubt, turn it off and turn it back on again.
Yep.
Right? It's embarrassing that that's the answer so frequently.
Oh, let's see what this.
Did you ever see the British version of the IT Crowd? The sitcom, The IT Crowd? That
I
was a
love
running
the IT
gag.
Crowd.
Yeah.
That was a running gag in the IT Crowd. Is they would pick up the phone even before they said hello. They'd be like, "Have you turned it off and turned it back on again?"
Back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody I saw, my wife and I were.
Yeah, they made a U.S. version. I see somebody in the text. They made a U.S. version. It sucked. They brought over. They brought over Iowati.
Wow.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they tried to insert an American as the kind of the Irish guy character. And it was awful. It's awful.
That's not going to work. And then Kunk was the manager.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kunk was the manager, and Matt Berry was
Matt
the
Berry
boss.
was the big boss. Damn these electric pants.
I love him in What We Do in the Shadows. What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know what else is really good with Matt Berry? If you have the time, Google or bring up the YouTube with him and Peter Capaldi, where Matt Berry is the Sultan and Peter Capaldi is the head of the Cossacks from Zaporizhia.
Oh.
And it's a take on the painting that I love so much that is the answer to the Sultan by the Zaporizhia Cossacks, and it's just a series of obscenities.
Sorry, I muted the guy.
And then a lot of them just have experience with baseball.
Just go. Nothing's playing on your stuff today. You're back live.
Oh, okay. Welcome back. Hi, everybody. We were during that hold. I had you muted there, Devin, because I was hearing the news and all that kind of stuff, and we just slow rolled into this. We were having such a great conversation, and it's nice that Phil is joining us right now. Philip Hittner, a host of On the Edge. Please check out the show and subscribe. Our dear friend Boston Brian is his guest this week, I believe, and Johnny Million is still with us. He'll be farming questions from the chat room for us, which will be great. And I have no doubt people have them for you, Phil, because of all that's going on in the world. But the nice thing was listening to Johnny and Phil having a conversation about the IT crowd, the IT crowd show, both in the British versus the American version. And I have that same issue with the British Office versus the American one. The American one being sillier and more cartoonish. And I would argue that the second season of the British Office is borderline emotionally brutal. And if you don't watch the Christmas special thing they did to wrap it all up, it's just depressing.
That's Gervais for you. But in a reverse of the IT crowd, I actually like the U.S. office a little bit better than the British office.
Mm-hmm.
The British office is funny, but it is very Gervais, and there's a really dark undertone that's the entire.
Oh yeah. It's, I mean, it's a bit sad actually. Like there's some heartbreaking stuff, and it ultimately becomes a great romance. But you know what? I yearn for the day when this could be the show where we're just talking about these kind of things, considering the circumstance we're in. I want to see if this is no, okay, yeah. So the I was mentioning a little bit during our last break about the Iranian hack on the Minnesota water system, and then I got to a little bit of like Chinese salt typhoon, for example, and then we just indicted 2 Russian companies and 4 Russian people for attacking dozens of elements of our infrastructure inside the United States as an ongoing state-supported activity, and what there's been these stories recently, and I want to get your reaction to this, Phil, right away, which is that Iran, attacked the United States, and that Russia's been providing them with targeting information for troops and where to hit in Jordan, to really where actual troops might be, as opposed to places they've been evacuated where you just end up hitting an empty building. That's something that Iran might have to deal with, but Russia giving them up to the minute information on whether troops are actually in position or not at these bases so that they can maximize their fatalities. And Trump is shrugging it off in the same way that he's saying Iran didn't hack Minnesota. Like it sounds a lot like his defense of Trump, of Putin during the last term, when he was like he didn't believe our intelligence people about their impact on the elections.
Yeah, well, he doesn't care about our troops. And I think I mean that's at least part of it, is the fact that he only sees our troops in, as usual, how they're useful for him. And them getting killed because of any reason, whether it's malign actions by a foreign nation, an enemy state, or whether or not it's our lack of defense because we've exhausted our interceptor ammunition, our arsenal, it doesn't play well for him. So if it doesn't play well for him, the best thing to do is ignore it and try to sweep it under the rug. And, as commander in chief, that's unacceptable. To me at least, it's unacceptable. I mean, you bear a responsibility when you become commander in chief that you do the very best to keep our men and women in uniform out of harm's way and give them the best weaponry and defenses that they can possibly have so that they can defend themselves. And you don't start idiotic wars. You don't start, wars that are going to harm our troops. And he's done all of that. And so he just, and then, I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. For me, the last straw was when he went to the cemetery, when he went to Arlington and did the whole glad handing thing, and it was a big old party. And to me, that was there was no going back for me after that. Not that I was ever a supporter of him, of course, because I believe I believe he's compromised by the Russians and he's a danger to our nation. But when it came to our men and women in uniform who sacrificed, I mean, I spent the better part of 2 decades, living with our armed forces as a military reporter, and I got to know these guys really, really well. We have, I mean, the general population, and not that they necessarily have to, but the general population has no idea the sacrifices that our men and women make, and that their families make. And to have the commander in chief be so flippant and only care about how it affects him when they come back in coffins is, it's completely unacceptable. Well, I've lost your mic, Hal.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Hal.
Oh, that would be why it just decided to kick me off. I'm good. I guess the issue for me is that it seems like a mental habit at this point to disregard the warnings from our people, disregard the reality of. I mean, we are at active war with the Iranians, and even the maggot media that hates Ukraine. They'll talk about this like we're in a proxy war with Russia, as opposed to just supporting a country that was attacked by Russia because Russia has dreams of Ruskamir, right? And that it's strategically intelligent and it's also fair and balanced, to borrow a phrase, to support Ukraine in this circumstance after they were attacked. But even if you believe that we're attacking Russia through Ukraine and whatever, then that would give Russia, in theory, reason to attack us back using
We've been at war with Russia since at least 2016.
Right.
We've been at war with Russia, I would argue, since probably 2008 and the Georgia conflict. And we're at war with Russia not because we are engaging in offensive operations against Russia, but because Russia is engaging in offensive operations against us. But they're so good at their covert operations, which is what the war is mostly when it comes to the direct confrontation between Russia and the USA and the entire West, really, is that they push it just right up to the point where there's no tangible reason for us to get tactical, if you know what I mean, with Russia. But don't make no mistake about it. And I say this because, most of the attacks that are staged against Western infrastructure, our body politic, assassinations, subterfuge, sabotage, all the things that they've engaged in, they're very good at doing that without getting repercussions. And the fact that they have made the decision to go kinetic in Ukraine was a long time coming. It was going to happen regardless of whatever we did. We did not provoke Russia. Russia decided to attack us. And that's why I say we're at war. We are currently at war with Russia. And the sooner we realize it, and I'm talking about the entire West, but particularly America and England. They have a real thing about the Anglo-American world. So
part of it is that this goes towards sort of like the Ukraine as the canary in the coal mine, as far as a country trying to break away from under their influence, move towards a more European situation as far as their economy and their relationship with the rest of the world. That they were trying to install a sock puppet in there. That didn't work. So they had to, now they've moved to kinetic measures. There's an element of that was tried in the United States and with varying levels of success. Trump is our Yanukovych by and large. There was an attempt because of the royal family setup in the UK. It's hard for them to infiltrate, using the, regular democratic structures, but they had favorable and unfavorable prime ministers. That it was just that Johnson wasn't quite on board, and the timing was wrong for them.
And they also are convinced that the square mile, the city of London, which is their business sector, and Wall Street are entwined, and that I hate to go here, but. Part of it is anti-Semitism. They really believe in the whole, the what is it, the elders of Zion, the
protocols of the elders of Zion, but
protocols of the that was an NKVD operation, that. That was the Tsar or Cheka. I guess it would have been the Cheka. That was the Tsar's secret police created that thing, planted it on an Austro-Hungarian soldier to be found, a corpse to be found by Russians. by Russian soldiers to incentivize them to fight against, this evil Western, this kind of secret cabal that's working. And, obviously originally they used it against the Austro-Hungarians and the Germans in the First World War. But that whole thing was a psyop by the Kremlin back in the First World War. So, I mean, look, this is a history that goes back, centuries, really. This animosity that they've had towards first England, and then as an extension of the Anglo-American world, we got dragged into it as well. And then when we became a global power in the 20th century, they were threatened by us for that reason. So, they're just Russia is always looking for external enemies, and when you look for something and you really want to find it, and you're hell bent on finding it, you find it. So, that's why they're so good at conspiracy theories. That's why it plays so well to our population that's prone to conspiracy.
Well, and the
theories.
rolling damage. Let's take a break, but the rolling damage of it is the point. I mean, it should come as no surprise that the Russian Okhrana, which is I think the version of the KGB when the Tsars ran things in 1902 or 1903, whenever they released the protocols of the Elders of Zion and crafted it. It should come as no surprise that the very same people came up with the story in an Indian newspaper in Africa that the CIA created AIDS to kill black people, and any treatment they give you for it is an attempt to sterilize your people, that it's not a real disease. Sound familiar? And that the cure is actually a way of killing you, so that they could broom out large sections of Africa by letting people die of AIDS. That was effectively it. Like, don't take the precautions the West is telling you, and certainly don't take any medicines that can prolong or save your life, because the goal is passive eugenics, or the actual push of a bioweapon through that area by allowing a natural pathogen to kill as many people as possible, and using that smallpox infected blankets, that storyline, which has been around for a very long time. Why that's hard, that's easy to believe, but the AIDS story that the Russians pushed into African newspapers isn't, for the specific same purpose: allow the disease to kill people. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, I guess the reason they knew the protocols of the Elders of Zion were fake was because they literally lifted passages from a novel that was a fake conversation between Machiavelli and Montesquieu or somebody like that, and they patched it from that and some other, like, this is what I think the Jews are up to, and they basically just changed the pronouns, and it's word for word from one of the Herman Gesch, his book on it, there was a novel that he wrote.
They've always been very good at psyops.
Yep,
really good.
And they keep going back to the well, and it keeps working until it doesn't. And it's curious now that the new kind of
they overstepped. They overstepped here. Mm-hmm. And now the West recognizes the threat. I mean, certainly the Europeans do. Trump and MAGA keep trying, except for Laura Loomer apparently, keep trying to kind of ignore it, or to say that it was our fault. We provoked the Russians, and Russia is this wonderful place, like Tucker Carlson does. But the right-thinking people in the West have realized that no, Russia really has aspirations on screwing us up, and attacking us. So it's good that at least we've woken up to it, and part of that is due to Ukraine. So as awful as the war is, at least it woke up some people.
Yeah, well, and again, how long they stay awake is the issue all the time, because This idea that those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it may not realize that you're still in the same phase of history. We're not out of it yet. The Cold War, I would argue, never ended. It just shifted. If you have to go to a fallback position because you're losing, that doesn't mean you're no longer at war. If and pretending to be on the side of like, oh yeah, you know what, we give up.
Now back to Hal Sparks on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So, if we look at sort of how the Russians are using propaganda and how they used it over the years, and how Donald Trump is arguably the perfect rube for this kind of manipulation, both through our just straight up fake documentation, the using that fake documentation to both support his points, which are garbage, attack his enemies. So the stuff is, he thinks they're equally as real, right? And then to undermine and control anybody who would go after him, right? You use that as leverage.
One need only look at the Central Park Five, where even after they were acquitted, he still doubled down. Or one only has to look at his phone calls that he would make as John Barron. He
he's a fellow traveler.
Like the Russians, he creates a reality, and then he tries to get everybody else to buy into that reality. And that's very Russian. So I can absolutely see that they're, fellow travelers in this regard, that all we have to do is sell something to the rubes and we'll get power.
And it's funny that we talk about like the CIA in terms of propaganda, like Voice of America being some sort of propaganda network, or USAID being used to create, quote, fake stories and that kind of stuff. When in reality, like if and when they have in the past is even pilot programs or bait programs to find out who supports what and, like chase down leakers. There's all sorts of tactics that are used in that kind of dissemination of stories to do that. Like, it got out, or they're telling me something different inside the office than is coming out. So therefore I got to tell my handler something else. And then you track down what that person tells their handler and you catch a spy that way. Those kind of things have been around for a long time. But there's a huge difference between like the KGB and the Department, I want to say it's Department D or Department A, which was their literal disinformation army. And there was a guy on Fox News this week, which ironically enough, as they start to sort of like deal with the uncomfortable nature of Trump BSing about the Iran war, that was like, there are, 5 fronts we deal with, air, sea, land, and space, and cyber. And we are way behind on the cyber part of it. And the area he was most talking to was not just like phishing and our low res security on, people's laptops in, contractors that work with water purification companies, and you get an attack like what happened in Minnesota, but also in our response to bots online and media manipulation, specifically the tenant media stuff that, like all of a sudden, there was a big story on Fox News not on Fox News, on X. It also has an X in it, where people were going, hey, look at where the Russian money is dried up, I guess. All of a sudden, Tim Pool, who was like, Ukraine's got to be stopped. They're a Nazi regime, and we're being forced to support them. And he was really vociferous. And then the tenant media money went away. And all of a sudden, he's like, I think Russia might be the bad guys. Same thing with Laura Loomer to some degree, although I would argue that her response was more organic because she was still kind of carrying that torch till she went there. Right, that might have been more real, but the reach of that money, the NRA money. Think of all the destabilizing that the NRA did after school shootings by putting on these gun shows specifically, or showing up in a town after a gun show to specifically put on this like pro NRA thing, which was classless and gross, and the big donors behind it insisted. Well, we now know one of the biggest donors, if not the single biggest donor, was the Russian government.
National Prayer Breakfast. Same
right. Thing. Yeah. The militarization of it.
And there they even had the added extra spice to add that they could do white Christian nationalism. that Russia is the last bastion of white Christian nationalism against the, Muslim hordes or whatever. I don't know, whatever. But it's the same thing. It is manipulate. And I am sure they're all over Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the Russians are all over. I mean, a lot of those guys are Russian nationals, and they got rich doing tech, and then they went to Silicon Valley, and I am sure that some of those guys were working on behalf of the Russian military intelligence. It's not that in my mind.
It's fascinating to me that there's this huge attack on the concept of disinformation. Specifically, if you watch, because one of the ways you protect your disinformation is to attack anybody that calls out your disinformation. And one of the ways Trump does it is with his fake news attack. Just call the news fake all the time. And it extends to the maggotry that are supported by, Russian funds a lot of times too. They'll attack the mainstream media. They'll cite them when the story fits them. Tim Pool and all these guys who are getting if they like a story in the New York Times, they'll use it, and they'll ignore if there's a retraction, or they'll ignore the third or fifth paragraph that throws a little bit of cold water on the narrative of the story. But attacks on the word misinformation and disinformation, especially around COVID, reek of a defensive measure on behalf of people who are directly trying to flood disinformation and misinformation into the public sphere on purpose. Because it's a preemptive attack on the criticism to mute the effectiveness of that attack. And it works a lot. Trump does this with the fake news, calling everybody a fraud, talking about Minnesota fraud, calling Adam Schiff a fraud, calling Biden a fraud, or whatever. The Biden crime family, the way you mute attacks on your own criminal activities, because nothing compares to what the Trumps are doing right now. And even, right wingers are finding this out. Look at Megyn Kelly's flip out about this recently, about that she doesn't like the crypto and the obvious no bid contracts that Eric's getting for his drone company and all that kind of stuff. Your first tactic when you're going to commit a crime, accuse everybody else of the same crime or of a greater crime. So if they come back to you and go, A, I'm not doing that, and B, you are, it just sounds like a childish schoolyard response instead of a legit, pointing out of what you're up to.
Yeah, I mean, I advise everybody look up Mikhail Lesin. Mikhail Lesin was Vladimir Putin's spin doctor when he was coming up in the Yeltsin era. This recent movie they made, which I didn't watch, but with who was it that played him? Who played Putin? Anyhow, his counterpoint in the movie is a guy who's a kind of conglomeration of a bunch of spin doctors. Mikhail Lesin was one of them. And his whole, and I was living in Moscow when I saw this happen, his whole strategy was, we don't have to convince anybody of a narrative. We just have to put so much confusion and chaos out there that nobody can land on any one single narrative. And that means they're adrift. And he was very suspiciously killed
once they're adrift.
On his way to meeting with the FBI.
Yep. We got to take a break on that note. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Johnny Million, you got questions for Phil after the break?
I got one so far.
Okay, cool. We'll be back right after this. There we go. I mean, this is a huge part of this that I see, Trump, there's a difference between sort of like passive defensiveness, like, I'm not stupid. I found this information out on my own. I did my own research. There's a lot of that all over the maggotry on X and Facebook, where it's a personal attack on them to point out the fact that they're being propagandized. And that was one of the things that stood out about Laura Loomer's mea culpa, was her awareness that she was now aware of the propaganda.
Yeah. if there was there have been a couple of benefits to her trip. I'm still very wary of her, but that was one of them. Is the idea that hey,
well, wait till they find out. Wait till they find out the Russians are behind the bum rush of Islamic immigrants into Spain and other places like that. That they are the financiers of that.
From TuneIn.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show. So, one of the things that, we pointed out is that, how the caravans seem to dry up when it's not in the United States headed towards the border, when Trump's either in office or he's no longer running for office. And they seem to ratchet up when a campaign's going in order. And the idea around that is that there may be some sort of organic migration that happens naturally. But the flood part of it, where there's a mass of people that organize and do something together, is often well-financed through, shady NGOs and that kind of stuff. And as much as the Laura Loomers of the world might be waking up to the fact that they were propagandized by Russia, one of these days they will more than likely wake up to the fact that Russia is by and large behind the Muslim immigrant waves going into Europe, specifically the financing of it and the drive to do it, and the tacit support for any terrorist network that might want to seed those people in and help, make sure there are bad actors in there so that they can, obviously nut pick and choose, like, oh, look at the immigrants that came in under Biden and this one did this and this one did this, ignoring obviously immigrants that came in under Trump that he gave specific pass to, that did stuff, or his friendly relationship with, him pardoning a drug cartel leader and, that kind of stuff, like major criminals who went right back to criming, right? That ignoring that part of it. But maybe they'll wake up to it at some point.
When Philip Breedlove was Supreme Allied Commander Europe, he released he published a report. NATO published a report showing that the Russians were weaponizing migration. I mean, I got, it's 2015, Philip Breedlove, look it up. Russia weaponizes migration. He made a whole big speech about it. They released a report about it, and then it just went back into the ether. On the edge, I spoke to an African investigative journalist, Philip Abeja, who went to so between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, there's this very fertile band of land where there's a lot of population, and Philip Abeja went there and found evidence that the Russians were coordinating. They'd bring all the migrants coming up from Sub-Saharan Africa or down from North Africa. They would bring them to a central city in this area, and then get them into trucks and lorries, drive them up to a port city, organize the what we would call mules to get them across the Mediterranean. So we know that this is happening in Europe, and Russia is nothing if not consistent. When they find a technique that they like, that goes into their playbook, they do it over and over again. And I know that there have been journalists in Central America who have found very much the same thing that Philip found in Africa. They are doing this. They are taking active measures to attack this.
Yeah, Breedlove was talking, part of his reasoning, when I looked it up, I remember this kind of conversation happening back in the day. He was, as the Supreme Allied Commander, this isn't just somebody kind of random talking about this. This is a man who's talking about, like, active tactics that were happening. And one of the areas, interestingly enough, was Russia working with the Assad regime and using barrel bombs to basically herd large groups of people to areas where there were no resources to effectively cause a stampede across the other way. If you basically cut somebody off from a water source and all their, however they would get food and the like, and you push them further and further, the only recourse they have is to escape into the next country to get whatever resources and try to save themselves. And you cause Europe, in many cases, to react to a reality that these genuinely are starving people. The part where they were herded by the Russians and by Assad specifically for this purpose is often left out of the equation. And had these people not been, like pushed into a choke point where they had nowhere else to go, they wouldn't be migrating. They wouldn't be in this situation. They would not be refugees in search of any kind of future or resources. They are being driven like cattle into these circumstances. And the Moroccans that came across into Ceuta, yesterday, that were pushed right back, the young men there reek of this exact pattern. Mm-hmm. That you charge them into this area, you make sure there are no jobs in that area. You've got to force them into this zone, start cutting them off from resources that they have, and eventually they're going to make a run for it because they would be stupid not to. Never mind.
On the other side of the border, you pay, for radical right parties to have funding so that they can have rallies and marches. Mm-hmm. You fund
the like left-wing people who want to bring them all in because they're reacting to the starvation that they actually see in those people.
Yeah, they don't care about the ideology. They just want chaos,
and they want them fighting amongst each other. Over and literally the way Breedlove put it was that so that they would be someone else's problem, and that's the drive. So beyond just being us getting our bad eggs out of the country or a particular tribe or group that we don't want to have to deal with, now you can weaponize that and make that someone else's problem on purpose to affect the internal dynamics, to limit the funds they would have for social programs so that right-wingers inside a country can say, we can't afford Social Security. These guys want to give it to everybody. And if we give out that kind of help, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, they'll just allow all these immigrants in. To sound familiar? They'll allow these people into the country, and then there won't be any of it left. And we'll just be handing out all our money to these impoverished classes of people who are really coming here just to rape and murder us. And then the Russians feed in groups of people. Make sure there are people in there that are criminals, that are, there to, most of the time kill other drug dealers and stuff like that. But where they aren't, it's not their problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it for a long time.
And they don't, by the way, the program that the Russians use is called Active Measures. There was even a book about, active measures, specifically about the attack on our election. And how they were helping Trump. But this is their name for it. Not, this is our soft power. This is as much, this is as much an act of war as a missile strike. And the damage could be more long-term and more destabilizing. And then Trump gets to take advantage and say Europe's being overrun by migrants, the UK's being overrun by migrants because Russia is working with these totalitarian regimes to herd members of their public into these other countries, the ne'er-do-wells and the unwanted, but also anybody who's poor, the Yazidis and other folks like that, or simply just the outraged and vengeful who, can turn on the news here and find that we're for. Yeah.
We know Marie Le Pen got money from the Russians. We know Gerhard, former Chancellor Schroeder was it Schroeder or Schultz was on the board of directors of Gazprom. I mean, it's insidious. It's absolutely insidious. And again, I think some people have woken up in the West, but not nearly enough.
Right. Let's grab a question. I know we have one from Johnny, but yeah.
Yeah, I've got one here. This is from Dave Bonson. Phil, there was a large demonstration in Kiev yesterday. You showed a video of this. What were the red and black flags in the crowd?
The red and black flags are a 5 centuries old Cossack battle flag that represents Ukraine. The black on the lower half of the flag represents the black soil of Ukraine, which makes it so fertile, and that's why a lot of people covet this place. And then the blood, the red on top, is the blood that is constantly shed over the black soil. it was appropriated in the Second World War by the Ukrainian Partisan Army, which was had a part of it was Stepan Bandera, which is the big boogeyman that the Russians like to trot out to show that Ukrainians are all Nazis. It was appropriated by the UPA. The UPA was a pretty loathsome organization in many ways. They burned down Polish towns in Western Ukraine. Bandera was actually kicked out of the political wing because he was too extreme. But there was this whole period of Ukrainian history where they did what MAGA does, which is you're a Ukraine. Are you a Ukrainian? Are you a good Ukrainian? Who gets to arbitrate what that is? And that's my issue with Bandera, and with a lot of the UPA. So that's what that black flag is. They're trying to reclaim it. It's problematic. It's problematic. There's no two ways around it. But at the end of the day, it is more about Ukrainian independence than it is about anything else. It's harkening back to the original meaning of the flag, which was the Cossacks, who
separating themselves as a people from the Russians, right, specifically, which is the touchy part for Russia. On the one hand, they again will support that group and that kind of almost separatist or backlooking nature of it, because of the division that it might cause or the political chaos. But they don't really care either way. It's not like either version of it helps them. One of the things that when I was looking up the weaponized migrant stuff. One of the big ones, and this deals with kind of what we're talking about here, is that remember the 2020 around COVID, Lukashenko and the Polish migration force, like that, or the Belarusian, attack on Poland with migrants. He literally Lukashenko came out and said, "I'm going to attack." He threatened to attack Europe with drugs and migrants. Specifically, like he overtly said, we're going to attack them with drugs and migrants. So much so that they took migrants from Russia and other places that were fed to them to the close to the Polish border, and then had them stay in hotels, and then drove them to the Polish border and gave them wire cutters and gloves and stuff for crawling over the fences. They stopped the Polish from giving humanitarian convoys of food into the area so that the people wouldn't be well fed and wouldn't need to leave, to make sure that that sustenance wouldn't be the thing that drove them to try and breach the Polish border to try and get help. But this, I just remember, like, it was July 7th, 2021, Alexander Lukashenko explicitly threatened to, quote, flood the EU with drugs and migrants. Specifically admitting to what is considered to be hybrid warfare. He did not come up with this on his own. He's just dumb enough to say it out loud.
He's Putin's toady.
Yeah.
You remember the little toady from the Christmas Story with Scott,
right?
Was it Scott Wells who had two different eyes or green eyes or whatever?
Yeah.
And the little guy by his side going, yeah, get him, boss. That's Lukashenko to Putin. But the second that Scott gets his butt kicked by Ralphie, the toady goes running off, and that's Lukashenko.
So during this time, and I want to, we got to take a break, but during this time, this is what Belarus did effectively during this. I want to list this out. Belarus loosened visa rules for Middle Eastern nationals specifically. That state travel agencies advertised tours, in quote, to Minsk, and airlines, Iraqi Airways, Belavia, Turkish Airlines, Syria's Cham Wings airline, which again was a way that they bust people out of there by air, ramped up direct flights from Baghdad, Damascus, Istanbul, and Iraqi Kurdistan. The migrants were housed in Belarusian hotels, driven to the border, given wire cutters, axes, and planks to breach fences and cross rivers. The Belarusian soldiers and border guards were filmed escorting migrants towards the fence line, firing live ammunition and flares to intimidate EU guards, and blocking migrants from returning home once trapped in the border zone, meaning that there's no food or shelter. Your only hope is to breach the Polish border and get in there. And then Belarus repeatedly, like I said, refused entry to Polish humanitarian convoys trying to reach the stranded migrants so they didn't have to escape effectively. This is a Russian strategy, and it helps people like Donald Trump weaponize traffic at the border and claim all of a sudden 0 people have been admitted into the United States via the border, which A, is garbage, not true at all, but B, is an issue that I think he's even they've been lining barbed wire on the wall that's down there, and people take it as more of just like he can't build more walls, so he's just trying to appear macho. But the reality is that Hegseth and others are aware that Russia, if it doesn't like what Trump is doing, they're going to weaponize migration against him, and specifically Vance going into 2028 to either help Vance or to hinder Vance, depending on which way he leans and what they want, to make it a problem again. And so they're defending against their frenemies' goals. Going forward, they know it's a problem, and they know they have no control over it. It is up to Russia whether they want to start this problem up again or shut it down. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Don't forget, Philip Ittner has our friend Boston Bryan on as his guest on the Edge. It's on Philip Ittner's YouTube channel. You should subscribe. And Johnny Million has a show too. It's Johnny Million on YouTube and Twitch. You should subscribe there. Also, hey, give me a thumbs up. I don't know, like wouldn't hurt. I'm just saying. Just subscribe while you're at it. Yeah, that whole thing was nuts. Like when I dove into the Belarusian Polish border stuff.
When you really start digging into it, you see all the machinations.
Mm-hmm. And thankfully, it's so ham-handed and stupid. You can see all the moving parts. You know what I mean? You can, because sometimes they're good at it. And it's hard to see because the Russians got, most of the caravans were coordinated out of the Russian embassy in Mexico. Yep. And there are other little satellite, KGB offices all through South America. Sowing division amongst them, trying to, lower, America's relationship with oil producing companies and countries down there. And like the American companies going into these countries, what I meant to say before my lips got ahead of my head. But they're smart enough to stand back away from it enough.
Where facts matter.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Hooray!
I'm not one of these people who gives the Trump administration any kind of credit for any of these things, but I would argue that in many ways there may be people around him recognizing this weaponized migration and this hybrid warfare stuff as a genuine threat against the country. And they're just using his talking points and his own bigotry against him in a way to try and deal with this actual threat. He can, crap talk about migrants all he wants to, but in reality, we're not doing mass migrations. They're relatively targeted because there aren't that many people here. It was mostly a story. It was disinformation largely pushed by, Kremlin-aligned, maggot media in the United States. There's not 25 to 35 million new migrants in the country causing havoc that were dumped out of mental institutions and all that kind of stuff. It's garbage, but there's a little bit of blowback from his people that there aren't these, these evacuations, these giant roundups that they were hoping for because they can't happen because it's against the reality of it. But perhaps there are those in the CIA and the FBI, the deep state, as they would call them, the people who are really dealing with the threat and going, I don't care who's in office. This is an ongoing problem, whether Trump likes it. The problem, I think, and this may be going towards that whole disinformation Russia thing about him calling it the deep state and them attacking the deep state. The Russians would want an inconsistent response to their attacks on the United States. If you have a 20-year plan, you want a vacillation in the military intelligence and law enforcement response to your attacks. You want it to ebb and flow, for people to debate it back and forth, to start programs and shut them down. So this seems fairly consistent with everything they've always been doing, which again is why I stand by my belief that 1991 was a rope-a-dope. It's a great tactic. We have another question for Phil, Johnny.
Not that I've seen yet.
All right. Well, then we'll get in. There was one over here. So we had a couple. I think we had a couple in the staff chat, right? Is how much of a factor or how likely? Yeah, there you are. Do you see those two? And there might have been one before that at the bottom. Do you see that? Maybe not. So does Phil think when Trump claimed he would allow Ukraine to build their own Patriot missiles that it was just a plot with Putin to string Ukraine along, then pull the rug out from under them in terms of the Patriots? Yeah.
I mean, it's entirely possible. Sure. I mean, I never believed that was actually going to come to fruition.
Even if it did, it takes years. So the idea that it's going to be a quick solution to this is just silly. Yeah. And I also don't. I think it's just his transactional nature. Because he obviously didn't. You see the response among the maggotry to the Saudi nuclear deal. It reeks of that. Like, yeah, you give me some, I'll give you some. Sure, yeah, okay. That makes it look like I'm a peacemaker and I'm working towards doing stuff, and there'll be more nukes in the world. Sure, right? Yeah. So it's pretty peculiar. I don't see. Well, let's just get to the next question before I get into that any deeper. Which was, do you see that one, Johnny? How much of a factor?
I do, yeah. So how much of a factor, or how likely is it that the pump and dump being done by the on-off of the Iran war is actually being dictated or directed by Saudi and or Russian or oligarchs to feed their coffers?
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I mean, we'll never know. We might know in another 10 years or something, but
right?
Yeah, it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. I mean, that's how it's done.
Yeah, and we will. I do think there will be a comeuppance at the tail end of this. Because there will have to be.
I think someday. Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see first, because I don't think Trump will be alive, and this is again me not wishing him ill. This is just the reality of his age and the hard fade that he is on. That he's going to Weinstein his way out of this at best, where he'll be too old to go on trial and all that kind of stuff, if he's even around. The sons, though, and Jared, though, are going to be buried in litigation and congressional hearings for the next decade, if the power shifts at all in government, in our country. So this is, and it's something to keep, an eye out for. I want to remind everybody, we're getting towards the bottom of this too, that your regular shows on Sundays, and again, like I said, Boston Bryant's your guest this week. He came in and visited you. He was delivering trucks, that they had crowdfunded for, which was fantastic. Was there, a standout part of your guys, because you guys bumped into each other on the street, which was fairly hilarious. Was there something that you?
We went and one night we went and had a beer together, and there's this lovely kind of rooftop terrace and that overlooks Maidan. So we went and had a cold beer there, and then right before he was about to leave for the train, He came into the studio and sat down, and we had about an hour-long conversation about a lot of different topics of conversation, and we'll be putting that out tomorrow at 8 p.m. Kiev time, which I think is noon Eastern. And it's a good episode. So we're doing it as a collaboration. So hopefully both of our audiences will benefit from it and bring in new audience members.
Yeah, I think there was one more question in there, Johnny, as well. It was kind of last minute. We'll see if we can squeeze that one in. Do you see that one?
Did Russia bomb an American drone factory?
Yes. Yeah. Here in Kiev, just north of the city, in kind of a suburb. It was a joint venture between Ukraine and America, but yeah, American money there as well. So, yep, they did, and on purpose. They purposefully targeted it.
And we here in the States have heard next to nothing about that from certainly nothing from the administration. They weren't bringing it up at his at I guess Camp David oncology department or whatever he's doing up there. So I guess the thing to keep an eye out on, and I'm glad the conversation drifted this way during this particular episode. And you and I, I'm sure, will talk more about this on Wednesday with a little bit more swearing involved as you come on the show. The Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide is this the Russian disinformation as an active measure and a machinery that they are not only masters of but proud of, and that in the United States, because it's propaganda rightly has a bad rep, and manipulation of other countries' media rightly so has a bad rep. Is there an element perhaps of us showing up with a knife to a gunfight in terms of the information war that is happening right now? Yep. I mean, you could go back so far as to
we're losing it badly. We're losing the information war really badly, and then part of that comes down to the press corps, the state of media in the United States and in the West in general, and that includes big networks. I'm sure that there are Russian operatives inside the big media networks. I'm sure there's guys who are, either useful idiots or fellow travelers or compromised or whatever it is. But there's not a doubt in my mind that the Western media has got a lot of Russian infiltrators in it. So they're waging a war for our mind. It's like
and they've always got Reds scared. They've always got Reds.
Yeah, Khrushchev said it back in like '68 or something. We won't have to bomb you. We won't have to send tanks. We won't destroy you with weapons. We'll destroy you inside your minds. And he said that back in '66. Or, whatever it was, whenever he said that.
That's right. We're at the end of the show. Thank you so much, Philip Bittner, on YouTube. Check out his channel. Same with Johnny Millions. And, of course, a new episode of On the Edge tomorrow. I will see you guys Monday morning, God willing, for Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide, if I can disassemble and reassemble my system in the time. Thank you, Chicago. We'll see you next week. Ugh.
Thanks, Chicago.
Listen to the...
Thank you, Chicago. Yep.
You need to do like a stop motion or,
Oh, I've already started that. Yeah. I've got a 360 camera that does time lapse.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's gonna be a thing. Yeah. Wish me luck, but I'll let you guys go because I'm literally gonna run off and start.
Vegas,
Yep. Okay. Yep. We're just like less than a mile away from where we are, but it's a big shift. Yeah. So, but it's good. Well, it'll be helpful. Yeah. So.
All right.
And I'll tell you all about it on private time at some point, or I'll have a little Patreon circle thing about it very soon. But anyways, you're awesome. Be well. Talk to you guys later. Have a good day. Right. Go eat something. Get some rest. Bye. And enjoy Spider-Man, Johnny.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
All right, there they go. I think I got the sneeze right as he went out the door, I think. Poor Johnny. You don't know the Russian angle? There's, it is in, Russian something, spreading silly lies, Russia Fortnite. No, Russia's Forte. I'm sorry. I was like, are they using Fortnite now? It wouldn't surprise me. But yeah. Yes, but thank you guys. I got to jump out right away. Thank you guys for the super chats and the support. Let me say thank you to Bald Thanos. How can you sing us a Metallica song? Why, yes. Can I save up for one and either record or play it for you live? That kind of thing. And I've done a few. They're on Ginger's channel. I sang and played Damage Incorporated. Stuck on that. All right. And then thank you, Anne-Marie. I presume you're in Europe, but I won't hold that against you. And Senator Hal, nominate me as White House doctor. Lessons learned. Oh, thank you, David. Yes, absolutely. Just, be gentle. That's all I ask. Trim your nails. All right. That's it. I got to go. You know how Midwestern goodbyes go. For God's sake. All right. I'm going to get out of here, but I'm leaving on this because I feel like it. It's been stuck in my head. All right. Oh my God. So much to do. Hit that like, everybody. And please subscribe. Please. Yep, I really can sing those notes. That's really me. You're welcome.
You move like lightning on my skin, a sacred equation.
Dreaming of sin. I left my mic on. I'm singing along with my own stuff. Okay, that's hilarious. For those that don't know, Orion is an instrumental song, so